the library trustees did back 2 years ago, it's been almost 2 years, this has led to the identification that we need to go through a feasibility study to see what the future of this building is going to be supported by the community. And there are 4 different scenarios. As you can tell from the survey that most of you took, if not all of you took, that there are 4 scenarios that are being considered. One is actually just to rehab the existing space. The second is to rehab as well as expand. The third is actually demolishing this entire building and building a brand new building. And then the fourth is to actually sell and look for a different space. Okay? So those are the 4 scenarios that were considered, and we're actually going to discuss only 3 of them tonight. Okay? And I will say it actually in another slide, but it was very obvious from the survey. 410 people took the survey. Okay? Only 276 took the survey for the strategic plan for the library. So that means there's a lot more communication and outreach going on and discussion, which is great. 410 people basically all said that they do not want this land sold, and they want the library here. Okay? So based upon that feedback from the community, the committee then decided that these top three choices are what should be on the table for you to just look at and provide feedback. Okay? Okay. So, current conditions and current floor plan.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry, I didn't introduce you.
That's all right.
I'm trying to be fast.
I put a big name tag on here. My name is Phil.
Liz, can you slide the board because you've got part of the
We're
slide?
going to use it very
okay.
soon, so
Okay.
like the next slide.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So my name is Phil O'Brien from Johnson Roberts Associates Architects, and I have Natalie Ringos with me here as well. We're going to tag team this and go through it pretty quickly. Johnson Roberts Associates really focuses on designing public buildings. It's really what we do. Lots and lots of libraries in there, almost 30 years. I think we've built 40 public libraries now. So I think we feel like we know public libraries pretty well, but we want to know about your library and what your library wants to be, and that's why we're here. Existing conditions, you've basically got a 1.5-story building. The purple lettering here kind of on the main floor. This is the floor we're on right now. Up in the top right corner is the room that we're in. This is obviously an old school. About the middle of the 1980s, this building was changed from an elementary school. I know some folks here may have gone to elementary school here. This was changed from a school to a library. If you tried to do that today, the building code wouldn't let you do it. Wouldn't let you do what they did here. This is an unreinforced brick masonry building that is unbraced against seismic and wind loads and so forth. Basically, all the bricks are just stacked up and then the roof is piled on top. And it's just toe-nailed in. And for those of you that felt the earthquake today, we did take a peek around when we got out of the car today and make sure there was no cracks. But this is just the kind of thing that the current building codes wouldn't allow you to do. A lot of the interior walls that used to hold up between the classrooms used to hold up the roof. They took those out, put in steel beams. Now the problem there is that a big solid wall can take a load laterally. When you put up 2 columns and a beam across the top, it has a tendency to kind of swing around. So you can't really do the things they did before. So between what they've done to this building and just because of the way that it was originally built, not as a library, you've got a problem. This whole floor that we're on right now is framed out of wood. The current code says the library loading needs to be 150 pounds per square foot library. The school wasn't designed for that. You've got a wood floor here with a crawl space underneath. The other problem here is that you've got a bunch of attic space up above, a little bit of public space upstairs, and then a big hole in the floor. And when that was built kind of like you might put on the second floor of your sun house, made out of 2x6s. If we change anything over there, we have to build it again. Basically, the code says, anytime you touch something, you have to fix it and bring it up to current code. So if you take down that wall, you have to brace the entire building. That just becomes problematic, right? So, you've got a hard building to deal with here. It's not purpose designed as a library. It's an old school building. It's on a wood floor over a crawl space. Those are things that are difficult to deal with. I'm gonna let Natalie talk a little bit about your mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. We had our engineers come through and touch on those.
I work with Johnson Roberts Associates as well. We had our engineers come out and do a visual assessment, sometimes we will digging, but try and see what the systems are like right now. A lot of them are original to 1986, 1985, when the library basically, or school was converted to the library building, and kind of close to what it is right now. A lot of, lighting got changed, but not radically. It's not the system that's changed. You just replace like fluorescent tubes with LED tubes, for example. So it's not a permanent or long-lasting solution. And most of the systems, actually, I think all of the systems, are either over their life expectancy or have 2 to 5 years left. There's no root fire alarm system. The one that's here, a lot of it is equipment it's so old that it's no longer in production, so it's really hard to source replacement or in order to fix or replace something. So basically we start kind of creating a little patchwork and let's see, structural. You talked about structural. Communications, same thing, there's not enough to provide for the library or for what it needs to do for the public. Same with power, there's not enough outlets in some areas where people need them. There's no efficient ventilation. There was a chiller added to provide cooling in 1999, I think. And that had a life expectancy that just about expired now. So that would need a replacement as well. So we're at a point where all systems are either aged way over their age limit or very close to it. I think that probably covers it.
Yeah, so here's a picture of the actual HVAC system, and all of these reports actually are also on the website. I believe I had sent anybody who provided their emails, I've been sending links to all the reports so you can see everything. We are really trying to keep everything open and transparent for you to see really what this building is. And this is your building, so you need to know what is going on with it, okay? And the structural.
So the structural engineer was up in the attic. You can see down in the bottom right. This is where the roof rafters come down, sit on the wall. This nailer here is not anchored to the brick, and then if you look in there close, there's some toenails to hold the rafters in place. So when the wind blows, I don't know if the roof rattles, but that's all that's holding it down is gravity. And then down in the basement, you can see there's the wood framing. That's actually a close-up of a floor joist coming across. And if you see where it sits, it's just barely kind of about a half an inch onto a piece of steel plate there. It's not really sitting on anything. And then there's columns that were added that go up through the floor to help support your upper floor. There's a question there?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
You said it was a crawl space underneath,
Yes.
but in that picture you just showed the boiler. It doesn't look like it's in a crawl space.
If you go down to the bottom of the stairs, there's actually kind of a hallway that they've dug down a little bit, and there's a short wall on either side to hold back the soil. And that corridor takes you down to about the center of the building, and if you go down here, down a couple of steps, there's a boiler room. The rest of the basement, the majority of the basement is crawl space.
Thank you.
You got it. So just structural issues that need to be resolved, safety issues that just need to get fixed. Once you touch it, again, you get in, you have to get in and fix it. Water infiltration, cracking. These are the kind of cracks the structural engineers look at and they worry about a little bit. You can see falling up through the joints and then right down through the arch over the door. Cracks that have been parched over with cement plaster at some point in the past, and the cracks are just coming right back through. Signs of water infiltration and leaking coming through the roof in a couple of different spots. Some of this looks like it may have happened once in the past, and then it's recurred. The one at the top here kind of looks to me like it got painted, and maybe somebody went over it with plaster, and then it leaked again. It's obviously a recurring issue, something that needs to get resolved. Up at the front, some of you may have noticed that there's a wall over the front door on the front facade that was weak at some point, and that was reinforced as a big steel beam up on the face of the building now that it is painted gray. And if you kind of tuck around, your head around the side and look up against the roof, you can see there's braces behind that connect it back into the building. I think with those braces connected into the roof, we think water's getting in there too. So it's just, the building's kind of limping along, and it needs some help.
So in the actual leak report that you'll see that was done in 2022, you'll actually see the brick facade of the building is severely compromised by all of the masonry work deteriorating. So that bracing actually is only temporary to tie the town over to go through this exercise to figure out what the town wants to do with this building before we actually invest a lot more money into the actual structure. So it literally is just a temporary fix to tie us over, buy us enough time to make these final decisions about the building and then invest the money properly. So we don't want to make any structural changes or any big investments without knowing that that's the direction that the community wants to go.
So one of the options was to just renovate this building. In order to be able to determine whether or not we could actually do that and still fit everything that you needed to get inside this building, we needed to take a look and see what you could use. Now, you've got that existing crawl space down there. We took a look about whether or not you could use that for creating new people space. That becomes really problematic. And then you've also got some attic space up there that's underutilized as well. But that's problematic as well because the floors aren't designed for it, and then you run out of headroom because of the sloped roof up there. So we took a look at, programmatically, what kind of space you actually need for everything that you're trying to do. We compared that to another study that was done about 20 years ago. We're actually pretty close to where they were. You've got about 14 to 15,000 square feet of usable space inside this building. If you add the attic space that is not usable in the crawl space, there's about 30,000 square feet in this space. And the reason I point that out is because when you renovate, you also have to renovate those spaces that are underutilized because it's a code requirement. So you'll end up renovating 15,000 square feet that you can never use as a library. So that's an expense. So we looked at what you need for usable space. It's about 28,000 square feet roughly is where we're at. That just doesn't fit in this building. So we're looking at additions and renovations or new buildings is really where we're at. Just renovating here won't get you what you need in order to satisfy the amount of space you need going forward.
Just letting you know also, this graph, I know that the font is super small, but it is available on actually Johnson Roberts' presentations to the committee, the study committee. They're all available on the reports and documents page online, so you can see this up close. And then just to let you know that this presentation will also be placed online for you to access immediately starting tomorrow. We're actually recording this with Bourne TV. We're going to plug that also available online tomorrow or when the link goes live. And it's going to be made available for you as well as anybody who is unable to attend in person. And we're going to actually be opening this up for public comment, additional public comment for a little bit of time. So in case you want to actually sit on some ideas and then come back and share them with the committee and the support staff afterwards, you will have that opportunity to do so. So all of this resources that you're going to have tonight will be available starting tomorrow for you guys as well, okay?
So the way that these numbers all work is that we figure out what we need in terms of how many seats, how many books, how many soft seats, how many computers. And we calculate that all out, and that's where these numbers come from. We don't pull them out of the air. They're all calculated based on what you need. And then we take all those numbers, the square footage, and then all the equipment that you saw listed on that big long program that was hard to read, and then we put them together in what we call a program diagram. So this is kind of a double check on where we're at. We just want to make sure that we put a space in there, and each one of these matches the square footage that's shown here. And then we put all the furnishings, equipment, people, and books and materials onto those, make sure they all fit. So it's kind of a double check to make sure that what we've calculated actually makes sense inside the building. You can actually see some of them look a little bit tight, and then like they have a little bit of space, and that all works out in the end. We want to make sure that we're pretty close. Then we take these little color blocks, and then we start moving them around. You can see across the top, they're green. If you look down in front of you, you'll see some spaces that are green. That's basically your adult collections up there. You've got reference, adult fiction, nonfiction, large print. Okay, the yellow is the children's department. These purple spaces are meeting spaces, and then the brown spaces are administrative and staff spaces. All those same colors show up on your plan. We can get into the details of it when we get there.
Bill, question. What's the meaning of a red versus black in this?
Oh, that was actually changes that we made meeting to meeting, and we highlighted the things that were different from the last time. So most of the things stayed the same, but occasionally some things changed a little bit. So the first one over here, quiet study, 4 spaces. We talked about whether or not we should have 3 spaces that are a little bit larger or 4 spaces that are a little bit smaller. We ended up with 4 spaces. The amount of square footage stayed the same, but it's 4 little green spaces, which is right here. And so that's what shows in the plan.
So in all of these categories that have been identified to be included, were actually identified through the strategic plan, and then the actual study committee broke out into 2 groups. One was to focus on actually creating the survey, and the other subgroup was working on actually the programming and looking through the strategic plan, interviewing staff, and making sure that what is going to be considered is actually necessary for today, tomorrow, and for the next 20 plus 40 years that we're considering, that we're planning for. Okay? Great. So speaking of which, the survey is next. And just like I had mentioned, the location was identified. 55% said very important, and 24. So, almost 80% of the 410 people said that this location is necessary for the library to remain. And a lot of people actually identified and mentioned that we were having enough challenges to find the fire station. It would be hard enough to find a location for the library. So, and the study committee agreed with that. So that's why you only have the 3 concepts to consider tonight. The other thing that was really important was the actual preservation of it. It was very important to actually preserve the feel, and as there's, I believe up here, it says any of the exterior of the 227 people said yes. Okay, and so, but when you dig into it a little deeper, the preserving, when you get into it, it goes a little less and a little less. The front of the facade, important and very important, were again high, but then you dive into deeper, and I can't see the side of them, but thank you, Phil. Very important, you actually get down to the weather vane, and the cupola is really what's significant for the community as identifying. When we asked about actually, you'll see in the survey, which is in front of you, if everybody has a copy, you'll also see that it was really just complementing the village. If we asked if this had to be demolished and we had to build a new one, what would people like to see? And they said, the majority of people said that they wanted to complement the village. They didn't want it to be sticking out. It really was necessary for the village. So, and here again, this is to tell you. So, yes, I'm so sorry. Yes.
I didn't realize the building was in that terrible shape. I have a 200-year-old house, and I think it's finished. Not that you're going to put the library there. The architect, you could put it for a price. The architect, are you familiar with the Adams Center in Kingston, Mass?
I am not.
It's an old library. I don't know if it was ever designed as a school and then turned into a library, but they did. It's a picture of it. I mean, the way they, extended it It's quite charming. They also have a modern library somewhere else they did 10 years ago or whatever, but this is a historic building and they wanted it to stay that way. And probably, but what they added on is like a new entrance, new glass, you get inside. They took stairway out inside to keep that in space. And they have the historic collection for the town of Kingston is what they store in there. That's what's there. People can go and research. In the top is I guess it's called a beautiful meeting room for different projects and activities that go on in the community. It's a well-used building. If you want to, the Adams Center in Kingston, it's really quite charming. I'm sure architects have all kinds of creative ideas as to how you can extend a building. It would fit in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying exactly like this, but the conditions.
Yeah, we'll get to that, definitely. We're not at that point yet, but yes, any of those suggestions, I'll make sure to ask in the outreach that I send out tomorrow for any additional comments on tonight's exercise. If there are examples that people like for us in the committee to be aware of, to look at, I will make sure that that is included so you can put that in there. But as of right now, we are only going to be looking at actually kind of the decisions of those three scenarios, just in not specifics. We're not talking about how it's going to be designed, what is the look. It's literally, are we going to just keep the building as is and restore it and just the 15,000 square foot building's footprint, or add on to the back? We're not talking about how it's going to look, just an addition. Or are we going to demolish and build a brand new one? Okay, so those are the three scenarios. Nothing else except for those three scenarios are going to be discussed tonight.
Is the back okay to build on?
Yeah, so I'm just letting you know also, because we didn't mention it, the field behind this building is town-owned. It is actually not school-owned, which a lot of people think it is. It was transferred back from 1981 when town meeting voted to take the school and turn it into a library. It included the whole parcel behind here, okay? So make sure we'll discuss that in tonight's meeting when we get into Act 2 of the show. But yes, we have the whole backfield to consider as well. Yes, so, yes, I
just had a quick,
yes, Priscilla, no, go ahead.
quick question on the last slide.
Yeah.
So then, can we go back to the last slide, please? The one before this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't interpret those last two as either or. I would interpret them as separate questions. Like one, that last one doesn't necessarily mean you don't want to.
That's correct. So,
Because that wasn't how.
yep, and that'll be for discussion purposes tonight. Like, I'm just running through the slides, okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, what year was the building built? What year was this building built?
1924,
1924.
or before that. It was actually turned in, I'm sorry?
Is it considered historic?
No, it is not on the historical register, okay? So it is not actually, it is not bound to historical restrictions at all.
But it's registered?
It is not registered on the National Historic Site. People, it's the others, the original library, which is the Archives building, that is on the National Register. This building is not, okay? Yes,
When you say preserve the facade, are you only talking about the front?
yep.
Not the brick or windows or anything on the side?
We'll get
of
into
that?
the, yes, that's a great question. We'll have two scenarios for that to be considered tonight, and we'll get to that in version A and version B, okay? So, but yes, the facade is literally just the front, yes. Okay? All right, so, now we're gonna get into a little bit of a icebreaker for you guys. We're gonna pull this out. Okay, so, one of the questions that thank you, Natalie. One of the questions that the trustees, other trustees, the committee asked and wanted to know was, what do you want your money to go towards? What's important to you? So, how do you want your investment spent? Because this list that you guys create right now, what is important and what's not important for your money to go towards? Because that list will help you actually keep on target for the next exercises that we're going to do, Okay, so, yes,
What's important to me would be safety.
okay,
Creating a building that's safe,
okay,
as well as
okay,
creating enough space to provide programming for all of those different groups and all of the new programs that were added in that chart, which would really be very beneficial, I think, to every member of the town.
okay, excellent, thank you. Yes,
The children program.
children. Okay. Yes.
Good workspace with nice lighting, electricity, and, yeah, basically it's just spaces where you can work. And, because like right now, there's just the upstairs space and it's horrible.
Yes.
Internet access and computers for people.
So technology.
I think maintaining the ball field, though, you're not turning it into a parking lot.
Okay. Yes.
I have two actually.
Okay.
One is accessibility.
Yes.
And second,
Yep.
I don't know if it's relevant to this, is green building, you know how they build green?
Yeah.
Green.
Energy.
Yeah.
Energy efficient.
Green efficiency. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Meeting space.
Eating space. Okay, yeah. I know, there are over 50 people in this room, so. Yes, yes. John?
Meeting space with cable access so that the meetings can be televised
Internet
on
access and
local.
cable, yep, cable.
So, because right now, way too few meetings are available either by Zoom or to watch on public television.
I
or
know.
Local television, and that would be a valuable thing.
Tonight's a great example because we're not live on Bourne TV. So, and there's a lot of people that actually asked if we could broadcast this live.
That was my add on to meeting space. My primary thing would be capacity indoors and out. Capacity for anything and everything. My priority would be that there's enough capacity, space, facilities indoors and out for anything you imagine.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask you to clarify?
Yes.
Do you mean flexibility for people to be able to use the same spaces for a variety of activities?
I just mean that the whole facility, when you look at it indoors and out, will have plenty of capacity for whatever, indoors and out.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, this is a good list, yes. Yeah.
One is I love the outdoor space, so with that, building on the technology, maybe an outdoor movie cinema, when we were talking about utilizing outdoor space, and then to expand the workspace, multiple small offices with doors where you can have tutoring, you can have private, people can work remotely, so not just one or two.
Multi-use space?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure that we're also staying focused on the building. As of right now, we can do a phase 2, but because I really think we're going to have to just right now focus on the actual structure itself.
Okay.
What do you want your money to go towards? So when you're voting in favor, let's just say you're going to vote in favor, right? When we go to town meeting, right? Yes, everybody, yes, right? Okay. When you're voting in favor at town meeting, when we have everybody and all the 410 people that chimed in for the survey and everybody's going to be there ready to go and vote and put their cards up or hit the clicker, what does that grand total say to you? What's in that package that is very important, that is a must for you? And that's what we're going to talk about, because we're only going to be dealing with the building right now. Anything outside is going to be an addition or a phase 2, and how we're going to use it, because that actually is also another discussion Because it's not up to the staff, it's not up to the trustees, it's not up to the select board, it's up to the community as to how you really want that outdoor space programmed. If you want it to remain a ball field or whatever, but it is important to understand the use of the outdoor, the whole parcel. So we make sure that we are strategic in it. So it is important to know that the ball field's important to you so we can prepare for the next layer of, next phase of it. Okay, so I've heard a lot of, hold on, just for the sake of time, we've heard a lot about its importance, but I really haven't heard any not important. What is not important to people?
I'm thinking with all these wonderful ideas to make this library a space,
Yep.
a mecca for the town. This is a small village with small roads, and there are buildings and other possibilities for development in here. And to me, when you have a place like even Buzzards Bay or a village like this, if you do things piecemeal, you gotta be careful, don't you think? Because there'll be traffic in and out of here, the library, and with all these activities, and I think they're great, all of them.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the busy little village.
Okay.
It's not used to that, it's not designed for it, just saying.
Okay. So you
As
don't
go
want
along,
to, you don't want to overbuild.
and other people have property here too. You know, other buildings are in here, there are stuff across the street. I don't think the medical building is gonna get much more added to it, but there are other properties. And you don't wanna limit their possibilities by, taking up all the oxygen in the room.
Okay. So,
It's like a village, not just a building.
okay.
It's my mind, in my opinion.
Is it overbuild or?
Huh?
To complement the village.
Yes, well, and all the properties are not even developed yet. Or people are just, going about their thing. There's a lot of stuff in here,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
And it's a very small village. And there are roads, there are county road, and people live right around there.
Okay.
Beautiful houses right there. And they're used to the traffic we have. You'll have, it may be
Okay. Yep.
good to have a civil library.
That's that traffic that.
It's just, not just
I don't
the
know,
traffic.
I don't, is it additional traffic? Like, that's a hard,
That's
Yeah.
a generator.
it's a horrible eraser. So I am better not at
Oh,
I owe you a new one. Okay.
Well, you know your notes aren't going
My
anywhere.
notes are not going anywhere. Okay. What else is not important? Let's do what's not important.
Well, the ball field is not important to me. We have several of them in town, so,
Okay.
so if need be to expand, we
Okay.
have that property, is that correct?
Yep, okay,
So
that's great.
That's not important to me.
No,
What's
that's fine.
important to me is, it's
Everybody,
preservation of this building.
yep, okay. Anything else? Yes.
Just in a general sense, value and function over form, that if there's some renovation utility that'll require the outside to look slightly less pretty,
Okay.
appreciating that.
Less what? Less what?
Less prettier.
Okay. Functionable. All right.
Less pretty.
Anything else? George, you've been quiet.
The only thing I can think of is, this is not, it's a non-important thing, but
Yep.
just in general, what our library is gonna be like in 40 years. Boomers, I'm one of them, I'm one of the mid-wheel boomers, but we learned, we're kind of Luddites when I look at younger people, but I think because of the internet access, things like that, that's gonna be so far in the rearview mirror in just a number of years. So
Okay.
I'm thinking, what are the components of this library that will accommodate the year 2030, 2050?
Okay.
And I know it's very general.
Yeah, okay. Flexibility. Plans, future programming. Yep. Okay. All right, anything else before we go to the next thing? Yes.
I just wonder if we're gonna need a little more parking, because I know this parking lot is already pretty much good enough for what we have now, but if we have more capacity, I think
Yep. Okay, anything else not important or important?
Big part is more storage and better working space for the staff.
And working workspace, staff,
But sort of behind the scenes stuff.
yeah. Storage, okay. Anything else?
Well, since you opened it up to outside the building,
Yeah.
access, so in the summer, in many, many days, traffic is backed up every afternoon out here. I just wonder whether, as you think in the future, whether having an access from Perry Ave would help avoid some of the heavy traffic.
Harry Avenue.
You'd get,
Yeah.
but you might get more access and convenience for people trying to use the library. And you think about alternate. And then as it gets into parking, play it there.
All right. One more, and then we're actually from, I'm gonna hear from you. Yes.
Information, you know, the books, whatever the term is, information is on the shelf.
Okay.
You know, because that's what a library is for.
Yeah. So it stays a library? It's actually a
Physical
collection.
Physical materials?
Yeah, materials.
Virtual materials?
Right. Okay.
One last thing, please.
If you're quick.
One last thing.
Yes.
Have you thought, is it, to have the other business leaders in this little village, talk to them, invite them to
Yes.
something? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have. Yes. Stakeholders have been identified and we have been reaching out to them. They have been invited. They have been invited to every single, opportunity just as equal as residents. So there's nobody not invited. I believe we've really covered the community as best as I think as we can. But
Their way to think,
yeah.
what they want.
No, absolutely. So, okay, so well, this is kind of permanent on here. So you know that what we're going to go with in Act 2 of our, and this is the time where you guys actually get to dive deep into each of the plans, okay? So, Chris, I'm going to block you again one more time. I'm so sorry. Thank you. All right, so concept A is a, Joe, if you want to take this over.
So you've got copies on the table here in front of you of these plans as well. The first one, it's got a big A2 on it for you. It's an L-shaped plan. It's a two-story new building. Each of these plans is all about the same size because they all meet the program. So all the spaces in there, the colors and so forth, you see the different plans, all basically work as library buildings. Again, they're just conceptual at this point. You can see we haven't shown the furniture and everything on it. We started to show some walls so that people can understand what's going to be closed and what's going to be open. So there's three spaces you can see there in the green on the upper floor. There's no walls in between them because that's mainly book stacks and reading area. So the idea here is a two-story plan. It's a little bit more compact, has less roof, takes up less of the site space that you have. Okay, that's one of the benefits of it. It's a little bit bigger because it has two exit stairs and a main stair and an elevator. So it gets a little bit bigger. That's essentially what's going on in this plan. They all have a nighttime zone. So if you can come into a meeting like this at night, you'd still have access to the toilets, you'd still have access to this room, you still have access to this other purple conference room here, and the rest of the library could be shut down. So the left-hand wing on the lower level here works as its own little suite of rooms at night. The rest of the building can get shut down, the air conditioning goes into night setback, the heat goes into night setback in the wintertime, and this little zone works by itself in the after hours. All the schemes have that, so there's a lot of similarities in all of them. It's just it's a different set of clothes. They all lay out a little bit different, and they have pros and cons. Did I get on the high points there? One of the things I will point out with a two-story or any other kind of new building that isn't associated with this building is that you could build it someplace else on site while the library maintains and stays in this space during construction, and then they only have to move once into the new building.
Could you repeat that, please? Yeah, so this is what Bill is talking about, so basically that the library is right here, current library is right here, so you could build the new building behind it, and then actually then repurpose the front. So this is, again, I'm gonna say it again, and I'm gonna say it a million times, just like the mom I am, this is only spaghetti being thrown on the wall, okay? You tell us what you like and what you don't like, and that is what tonight is for. There is nothing set in stone, okay? So don't go home and say, do you know what they're going to do? Because that's not the case, okay? We are not going to do anything, all right? We are asking everybody what you think about these things, and then we can know which direction to go and what direction to leave behind, okay? So,
There's lots of different options on how to do a new building. You can do it one story, you can do it two stories. You put it in the field in the back. See, we reorganized the field, see, you can almost squeeze it on there. If you reorganize where the field goes and fit this building on. Behind this building, library stays here, you build the new one, then they move out, you have a small parking lot to start with, and then they build the rest of your parking lot while you're in the new building. Okay? If you move the building further back, you could put the parking lot and everything back there, and then have that building could still operate. You could use it for something else. There's a bunch of different options. You could put a new building in the front lawn, in front of the existing library, then take it down afterwards, or leave it for something else. There's a bunch of different options if you do a new building that isn't associated with the existing building. And the expense of that doesn't come with it. Those are where the kind of defining differences.
okay, so again, on the table, so we're going to take about 15 minutes to go on A2. It says on the bottom left, right-hand corner of your plan, A2 is what we're going to go on to right now. There's also another one up on the wall, and we have also additional meeting space or tables set up outside in the main library, that if some of you don't like the arrangement right now, you guys can go over into the main library area, and I will come and let you know when the next to come back in and go over the next plan that we're going to discuss, okay?
We're showing you tonight, this is the only one-story plan. One story, all slab on grade, no basement. And what we're doing here is, this is your existing front facade. There's your existing front door, and that's the brick wall that's out there right now with the windows, the white windows, the little door that goes into the staff area right now. The rest of the building, where we are, everything else gets taken down. Fill in the hole, all right? And then we put a new slab one grade building in here. Build a new, brand new one-story building behind the existing facade. And then that existing facade is anchored back to the steel frame of the new building. Okay? So, pretty elevation along the street, historic. The rest of the building is new. No stairs, no elevator, okay? Everything is on one floor. It's a little bit smaller in terms of the square footage. Some of these things balance out a little bit though. More roof on this building than the other one, right? So some of those trade-offs. The other building, two-story building, is a little bit larger overall, but there's less roof, which is more expensive than wall. Anyhow. So there's some pros and cons about all these things. Again, you'll see the same colors. Nighttime access, right in through your existing front door. It closes off here, you can get into the meeting room, conference room, use the toilets. Okay, during the day, you could also get in here directly from the parking lot on the side, assuming the parking lot is in the stadium. The parking lot may be in the back. You know that. Yellow is children's. They're kind of isolated off here. They have their own space, kind of suite of rooms. Circulation desk right in the middle. When you walk in from either door, you can see the circulation desk. The non-print new books you can see in orange and red. That's your kind of grab-and-go collection. Maybe you want to pick up the new bestseller, check it out, and right back out. Staff spaces in beige behind, reference quiet study spaces. There's teens there, back of house spaces here, staff spaces, and staff toilet. Pretty simple.
Dad, where's the ball field and parking?
Oh, yep, hold on just a second.
Oh, sorry.
So again, this
That's a
is
good
only
question.
a concept of just locking it down, right?
So because we're keeping your existing front wall, this one-story plan is tied to the existing building. We're not going to be able to pick that old front wall up and move it. We could, but it would probably cost another $1 million. So it's kind of tied to that existing front wall. So it basically sits right where your existing building sits, a little bit wider, a little bit further back. And then parking along the side and in the scheme, again, around the back, because we're trying to get the ball field in there. If we don't have a ball field, we do something different with the parking. So the ball field is one of those things that we left on there just so that everybody understands about what fits and what doesn't. If you push further back into the field, you're gonna lose that ball.
Well, because of the facade. Because remember, the facade, the whole front, this is one of the concepts that was identified as important to consider, okay? Is keeping the facade only, so just the front, okay? None of the rest of the building. And the cupola could actually, all these scenarios also, just a reminder, the cupola and the weather vane actually can detach and put on the new building, on the new roof, and, or used in some other way, okay? So, preserving the cupola and weather vane is not off the table, is being considered, okay? So, any questions before we dive into this one? Yes?
How much more light do you think the facade has?
Well, this would be, so if this is an important concept for you to retain the facade, that would be absorbed into the cost to restore it, so it is, correct if I'm wrong, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be the same equal life for the remainder of the building.
It's gonna be a maintenance thing. You're gonna have to restore it, and then it's gonna have to be maintained.
Right.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, it would be restored. It's not gonna just, we're just gonna leave a 5-year-old. It only has about 5 years left before we're done, okay? So we're not gonna just leave it as is.
In the first scenario, we're able to continue using this building while the second building is built. In this scenario, I would guess that it's gonna impact our use of the building. So how long would that impact be, and what would be some ways of mitigating that impact?
Right, so that would be, there would have to be trailers, or that it would have to be shifted, the library services would have to be shifted to an alternative site.
Or about how long?
A construction project like this, saving that old front wall, doing the demolition,
2 years, 3 years?
no, it won't be that long. But I would say with demolition, we're probably 14, 15 months.
Okay, any other questions before we dive in? Yes?
Yeah, I would like to know how much green technology you're thinking about using there, like solar.
We're not into that yet. We're not gonna dive into that yet. We're just talking about the concepts, not the materials and how it's going, the building's gonna be designed, okay? So I really want you guys to look at these concepts. If you like this concept of a one-story building using the existing facade and building on the footprint and pushing back, that's what we're gonna discuss right now. Not about energy efficiencies, anything like that yet, okay? So just the concept of the structure itself. Yep. So what's on the plan, that's what you're gonna discuss, and if you use your stickers or write on it what you like and what you don't like, okay? That's what the exercise is about. So I'm gonna now turn this over to 15 minutes, and you guys can go. Renovate this existing building and keep it within the same footprint, okay? Bill, off to you now.
Okay. Could be. All right, so this is the third scheme. This is actually an addition and renovation scheme. So basically, the 3 walls along the front and the 2 sides essentially stay. Portions of the wall at the back, right here, this wall, come down. And then we put a 2-story addition on. We're also going to take out sections of the upper floor. We have to rebuild because it's not designed for library loading. And so basically we need to fix that and then put a 2nd floor addition on there as well. So taking advantage of the existing main entrance is one of the doors, and then we also have a door coming in the side for children. Again, it's a little side entrance. That's your night entrance in this guy. Nighttime closure is here, so you can get in directly from the side. Basically, in the side parking lot, you can get access to the large meeting room, kitchenette, conference room, and the toilets in the building we get closed down. So this one's tricky because it basically keeps your existing building, and because one of the things you asked us to do, that's what we've done. A lot of the things that we have to deal with in this existing building become a little bit more problematic. Your large meeting space basically fits into this room. We have to take down part of the walls over there in order to make it big enough to meet the program. There's not as much flexibility in your existing building because a lot of the walls that have left have to stay. A lot of the walls were taken out when they renovated, but the ones that were part of the original building need to stay there. So we need to kind of fit things around them. So it becomes a little bit more complicated when we're doing an addition and renovation. And we try to put some of the larger open spaces in the new construction. So new construction upstairs, basically we have to build a new steel frame building inside the footprint of your existing building in order to support that load. Okay?
Sounds expensive.
That's right. It is. This is the most expensive option. The other thing is if we keep that space down below, it's that crawl space. Again, you recall, it's 15,000 square feet of space in this building that's usable, and another 15,000, in rough numbers, that's not usable. In this case, we're making some of that usable by building it again, okay? Taking down the old second floor, building a new second floor, kind of inside the shell of the existing building. The lower floor stays, and then if it stays, we have to put lights, heat, dehumidification, sprinkler system, emergency lighting, fire alarm. 15,000 square feet worth, and it doesn't give you any benefit. So those are the kind of things. We also have to reinforce this building. Because we're framing it and we're putting a new steel frame inside it, basically we have to take these 3 walls that we're keeping and everything else and connect it back to the new steel frame so that we can stiffen it. So there's money in that, and then there's money in these additional systems that we need to do. We have more area inside this building than you do in the other schemes. It's just bigger because it's less efficient.
Any questions on this scenario?
Quick question.
Yes.
So I'm very pro 2-story because I think it really serves everybody's needs that were identified in the study. It will also allow for parking to support those activities. My question is, this scenario seems like it's really expensive, or more expensive, and maybe I'm just saying that. So I'm wondering if the example that you showed us for the 1-story building, the 1-story, is that possible to make it 2-story without, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
build a new structure,
So
2-story, so it's.
I'm going to rephrase your question. Could you do a 2-story new building and just keep the front facade?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That isn't one of the options we're showing you tonight, but you could do that.
Okay.
That is, you can see the numbering on our schemes that go from A, B, C. There's a D, there's an E, and then this is the 3rd generation. We did an E, a E1, and now we're up to E2. Okay, so that's kind of it. So there's some other schemes you haven't seen because they were close enough
Okay.
that, in similarity, they kind of evolved to the point where they were very similar to these 3.
We're jumping.
But one of them kind of looked like that.
All right, thank you.
All right, one last question before we dive in.
How high would that 2-story building be?
You mean compared to this existing building?
Well, compared to all the other buildings in the village here. Oh, just to know, how many feet, what's the height?
Sure. I don't know that because we haven't done the 3-dimensional part yet. We've really just done these conceptual sketches. But we're assuming that this guy is going to fit underneath the roof for the most part of your existing building. So when you're looking from the street, it's going to basically fit under there. We're not going all the way out to the edges here because it's going to run out of
What's going
head.
out? No?
We're going to replace your second floor.
Oh, just replace it.
Okay, we're going
So
to
it's the
replace
same
it.
height as this building almost.
We're going to tuck it under your existing roof. That's right.
All right. Okay, you guys have 15 minutes, and you'll hear the scenario if you guys want to know what it looks like. Concept. Okay?
Great question.
That is perfect, okay? We have a new 2-story, right?
Well, that's why I was gonna
We have the new 1-story and keeping the facade. And then we have the renovation of the existing building plus an addition, which I was incorrect when I said that it was just the footprint. It is an add-on to the existing footprint, okay? So, now you've thought of it and you've discussed everything, show of hands, who prefers the new building? Demo of the existing and new building. Without the facade, A. Who likes A? It's just a new building that is 2 stories. As your first pick, okay, we're gonna go through, okay?
A lot of people live left.
I wasn't gonna be.
Maybe it was option D.
Okay, number 1 is, okay, so
Where did they do it?
letter B, so it's the new 1-story, keeping the front of the building, and then just building back, and it's only 1 story. Okay, and 2-story with a reno, and you keep basically the 3 sides of the building that's existing. 1, okay, excellent. All right.
Yes, option D.
All right.
2-story with expansion, keep the front facade only.
So
Making a D.
okay,
Like a B with a 2-story.
D is 2.
And A with the same facade.
It would be A with front facade. Keeping the
I go to that. With only front facade.
Okay.
No, the A.
A with front facade.
No, it's A with
And
a
C is
facade.
existing.
A with the side.
A with front facade.
With an expansion.
All right, so D then. A with the facade.
Okay, I'm switching, can you?
No, but not.
Oh my God.
Oh, now you're
Okay,
good.
well, that's okay. 1,
Because I was gonna say
2,
that
3,
too.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
When you say facade, you mean the existing
Just the
facade?
front, yes.
or the-
That was a big thing that we had.
All right, so I'm gonna let you guys weigh in online for that one, okay? Because it's gonna get way too hairy and complicated, and if you guys wanna stay until 7:30, that's fine. But, I'm gonna let you guys come up with other options and just email me or put it into the link that I give you guys at the end.
Okay, can I just say one thing? If people are emailing stuff, when you say facade, do you mean the physical bricks that are currently there or the look? There's 2 different.
There are 2 different things.
So that's.
You can differentiate that.
have the
Okay.
cupola and the,
Weather vane.
Yes. So interesting enough, and here we're gonna go with the costs, okay?
All right, let's hear
Liz?
Yes, sir.
I'm surprised, but that's beside the point. Is there any way that we could conceptualize with the architects a hybrid of what was BC? And in that, if we were to do that, the aesthetics and the style of the building, you know, what are they going to be? Regardless, actually. You know, we're gonna end up with masonry siding of today. Anybody who lives around here, just think about the building that used to be on the corner here.
Sure.
That they were going to save, because architecturally it fit. And now it looks like it should be in the low-income section of Hyannis.
So the design process, the design process for the outside of the building is going to work pretty much the same way as the planning process works. So we come up with, you can see on these things, they're labeled A2, B2, and E2. That's because we did an A, an A1, and an A2, a B, B1, right? And we've gone, there's a C and there's a D, and we've done a couple of generations of those as well. So we've looked at a bunch of different options. After getting to that 3rd generation, some of them were similar enough that we thought that we could just show you 3, and we get pretty close, because some of the other ones, we're doing a lot of the same things. But that same process will happen when it comes to the outside of the building. We'll come to the building committee and to you all with a variety of options. Again, I think we understand library design. We're getting a feel for the village and the area that we're in. We'll come up with some options for you, because it doesn't really matter to us what the building looks like. It really matters to you. And we want to give you a building that people can be proud of, that people are happy with, that fits in your community. So we don't have a signature style, a Johnson Roberts style that we're gonna bring and try to propose to you. We'd like to find something that fits for you. And if it's more historic looking, with some kind of newer, more modern touches to it, whether it is a completely modern building that represents this era, as all buildings kind of do in the era that they're in, or if it is somewhere kind of between there. Happy to do it, but we'll look at a bunch of different options. And we'll talk about the pros and cons. You mentioned, will it be a brick building? We do quite a few brick buildings, and part of the reason is because the maintenance on a masonry building is just a lot cheaper than having to paint clapper. But again, it's really up to you all, and we'll go through that same process when it comes to what the building looks like on the outside. We'll start with some real kind of vague concepts, and then we'll kind of push them along a little bit and develop them, depending on what the committee says and what you all said.
Now, you explained to us that when you talk about that front facade, it isn't just the bricks, it's the windows. And those windows are old and crummy, and they are in very bad shape, but you're going to be keeping those windows and all the problems that come with them, like the air leaking through, the cold air coming through, and anything else that's part of that front facade. I'm not against the facade, I just think you have to know that, you know, you're getting an old horse with a sway back when you get those old things.
Yeah, and again, there's hybrids to everything, right? Because we could keep it just the way it is and restore it, reinforce it so that it lasts just the way it is. Or you could potentially take out the doors and take out the windows and put new ones in. And then so you'll get something that has the old bricks and the old trim around the top, but has new windows in it. Just like everything else. It really is going to depend on what people are interested in seeing, how historic they want it to look. If you're going to take everything down except for the bricks, you might want to think about recreating it or making something that looks similar to it. It may end up being cheaper in the end. But these are the kind of things that we would talk about with the building committee as we move forward. Hearing feedback from you helps to inform that discussion that we have with the building committee so that the community is happy with what we're doing.
Yeah, if we say it's the look, like everybody raised their hand at the end because they like the look of what is the older stuff. If they could be happy with the look of it, if not the old nails and the old stuff, that would be better for the longevity of the building. And you're putting all that money into the back, you know, and that's important that you want everything to
They
last.
can make historically correct replicas. You know, if you have an old 200-year-old house and you don't want the windows, you can get them replaced with ones that look just like that and have more energy efficiency. They cost a lot of money, but that's what you can get. Don't use the old ones if they're rotten.
Was there a question on this side?
I'm just making sure this is 325,000 more than the lowest one.
Yes.
So it's relatively to each other.
Yes. So Phil, can you discuss the current going rate for square footage right now?
So it's hard to know exactly what your renovation costs are going to be versus new construction costs. And new construction inside the shell of an existing building is kind of a completely different animal. So without doing an official kind of third-party cost estimate, we've run some kind of just square footage general numbers on these things in order to get these things up. When you look at these two schemes, the difference is $325,000. With another iteration in each one of these schemes, they may come out to be about exactly the same. $325,000 over the cost of a building of this size is really not a big deal. These are, I would say, are essentially equivalent in terms of their costs. Or they certainly could be. With a couple little tweaks, they'd be about the same. The big difference here is dealing with the structural and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection problems you have in this existing building. In fact, if you need to do a lot of it for spaces that you can't use, that's really where the big nut comes from in this building. Trying to save this old building and including the structure inside it, because it really needs to be reinforced. Spending a lot of money to fix up something that would actually be cheaper to continue. So, you know, when folks said, you know, could you do a two-story scheme with a facade on the front, and maybe it's the original facade, or maybe it's a facade that looks similar to the original one, and then not do the scheme, yeah, that number goes away. You know, doing a two-story version of this with the front facade on it, these costs are going to be similar to these costs. This is really just additional renovation costs, and it's because of the inefficiency in the existing building and the structural problems you have with it.
Nancy?
And in Plan C, you're basically taking an existing building, and because there's structural parts that we can't change, you're kind of putting a square peg into a round hole in a way. You're taking our program needs and making it fit in the space we have versus the new construction where we can design what we want and best fits our program.
It's more efficient, that's right. I mean, in the end, you'll end up being, if you build new, you'll end up with less total square footage. You won't need to build as much to support the same program as you would with a renovation addition. It's bigger, just because some of the efficiencies in this existing building stay there.
Yes.
Do these concept costs include the fees for renting a temporary space? And if not, do you think that will make a significant impact?
They do include those costs, yes. This is not construction costs, this is project costs. Okay, so we try to do soup to nuts.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, that's pretty much it tonight, all right? But we have obviously more coming, all right? And again, these are concepts only tonight, and we are going to take all of this feedback and all of the feedback that we collect in the next couple of weeks from tonight's meeting, which we're going to make sure that you guys have the links. So everybody who has signed up for those emails that I send on a weekly basis, expect on Thursday, the links, the information, everything will be up and available to all of you, okay? And so, also coming soon, we are going to be offering tours of the building to anyone and everyone who wants to sign up and have a tour of the building. So you can actually, we're going to highlight and create not just a actual tour, signed up tour that a librarian or staff member can take you on during a certain designated time and day, but we will also be offering a scavenger hunt. So you can actually take the piece of paper and start looking and marking down where these deficiencies and areas that we need to highlight for the building are. It's very important to educate people because I have even heard from our own committee members for the study say that they were not aware of the condition of the building until they actually sat in front of it and then saw it. So if it's in your own committee, it's everywhere in this community. So we are needing to educate the community on what your asset is currently standing today, okay? And what your staff and what your children and what your just all members of the community come here, and that's what they're dealing with right now. And so you guys have that decision to educate and spread the word. That's what we want you guys to do, to spread the word, get people engaged, tell them how important this is, and that we really want their feedback on this, okay? So we're going to make tours available.
Make a video of that?
Yes, actually, we are working with Bourne TV. We've done some other segments with them already prior to, but I believe that is on there. We also have the committee created a public engagement participation plan, and that is also listed in the reports and documents, so you can see how and where they are identified as important to engage the public. And so this is one of the things that they identified as making tours available, as well as scavenger hunts. So then we are going to have a second public engagement meeting for everyone to participate in. We don't know what the content of it is going to be yet, and we do not know what the date of that meeting is, but that is going to be determined based upon how this all shapes out, and we collect the data from the public feedback from this portion, okay? So please stay tuned. Again, I will be emailing you. I will be constant communication. You will get tired of seeing Liz Harchgrove's emails to you, okay? All right, and then the third area of public engagement, which is super important, is town meeting coming up. All right, slated for town meeting is not design cost for the building. It is only going to be $150,000 for asking for an OPM, which is a project manager, okay, for the project, and then also for the design work, which then a separate committee. So there is currently a study committee that is going to dissolve and go away, and then the select board are going to appoint an actual building committee who will work with the OPM and the designer to create the next phases of the project, okay? Which is then a little bit more public engaging on the actual energy efficiencies and the design and how it's going to look and the placement on the actual site and everything, once we determine what it is that the community wants, okay? So those are the three big things that are coming up that I wanted to highlight, and thank you.
Thank you.
So much, everyone.